I think Victor Conte was the excellent bass player, and I think that he probably, obviously had a chemistry background. All those of you that don't know what we're talking about, the Balco steroid custom manufacturer back in the Bay Area when it was back in the 90s, I guess it was, when that thing peaked.
No, that peaked, that really hit home with when Marion Jones got busted.
Right.
He had been doing the ZMA thing for all those years when, I think when Muscle Media 2000 was still Muscle Media, and they still had that kind of edge to them. But Victor Conte got really big, with Marion Jones and was C.J. Hunter and a couple of those other guys. But
he was a musician, and I think probably for him being a science guy, the music for a lot of guys, a lot of mathematicians are
math
played
music.
It's just an extension of the math to these guys.
Yep.
And they kind of go hand in hand. A lot of extremely good mathematicians or concert players, high-level musicians.
Yep. Well, they got that. It's the same kind of mindset. It's very numbers-oriented and scale-oriented. It's weird because especially with jazz, not so much with classical, there's, obviously the music part, and then there's also the creative side.
Right.
Which maybe they're a little bit different still.
I had a crazy calculus teacher back in college that was an extremely high-level clarinet player. And I'm not a big fan of the clarinet, but Dick Williams, this guy's name was, oh my God, he was supposed to be an amazing player, and I didn't have enough sense at the time to appreciate the genius of this crazy person. All I knew is that he had absolutely no way to teach a 19-year-old kid calculus because he didn't understand what you didn't understand. It goes back to the same thing. Extremely talented athletes are the shittiest coaches usually that you can find, and for that
the best coaches
reason.
are the best players who had to struggle the most.
Right. Exactly.
That's why Phil Jackson, amongst other things, is such a tremendous coach. I think is because he had to understand the game at a high level with very little talent. Comparably speaking, of course.
Right. It was a struggle to learn it,
yes.
And the learning process is the teaching process.
Yes. And I got to tell you a story. When Victor Conte, when that whole thing went down, I remember he was on 60 Minutes, and for whatever reason, Dave and I were on the road, and I don't remember where we were, but we were sitting in a hotel room, and everyone was trying to figure out why Victor Conte did this, and then they kept on showing clips of workouts and intersplicing stuff, and then they showed us calendar with the schedule, and Dave we're up there next to the TV. What was he having a fit? What did that say? Did you see that?
Screenshot! Oh wait, it's a TV!
And we were so excited, and everyone else is bitching and moaning about it, and then we're like, man, did you see what he said? What would it say on there? So
Intel, man.
What was really funny is I wrote a piece about, and I started thinking about this, and I know we talk about strength, the as being so important to everything, and we talked about bringing up everything else, speed and stuff like that.
Right.
If strength is not important. When people tell me that, then I always respond, well, then you think steroids should be illegal. No.
No.
And then they say, well, they take them for recovery. And
right.
In the years that steroids have been available, there's no one in the world that's ever taken them for recovery. You know what I'm saying? That's such a load of horseshit.
I'm always amazed at one of our pet peeves is to bash the American Olympic weightlifting community, and you and I have talked about this before.
Yes.
What these people seem to think that heavy weights get shoved up overhead by everybody that beats us at the international level because their technique is better. Well, there aren't any technique steroids.
No.
And I don't know what else you need to know about this.
Well, you can lift 135 overhead with bad technique, right?
Right.
You should be able to do that with 500 pounds with bad technique just because you're strong. I'm not saying you should, but it's always funny when...
That's exactly... We were talking to Bill Starr, and I talk about this quite a bit. He and I were talking about this very thing. David Riggert, at 198, clean jerk 496.
Jesus, okay.
This is back in the early '80s and stuff, and Bill's statement was the man had marginal at best technique, but he was just so damn strong. These people don't seem to understand strength makes up for bad technique. And if you're strong enough,
and it's not saying have bad technique.
No, obviously good technique and strength. Incredible strength is the obvious thing. But to dismiss the contribution of a big giant 5-rep max deadlift from an Olympic weightlifter's training is to misunderstand some incredibly important stuff. Shane and I talked about this previously. Everybody that beat him was stronger than he was, and this is Shane Hammond. Saying this. He's certainly qualified to have an opinion about it.
And it's interesting because just coming from a football background, we had some guys that were ridiculously strong we're talking about the Olympic lifts, some of the worst power clean form I've ever seen. But
over 400. Right?
Yeah, and you're like, and people are like, well, it'd be great if they had great technique. I'm like, no, it wouldn't. It's more awesome this way.
If he can do it wrong, think what he can do right.
Yeah, and it's I was joking with you one time. I said my goal is to power clean 315 with the worst technique possible, and you were laughing. I said, well, the point is that means I'm just strong.
That means that you could do 405.
Yeah, with all the fancy and it's like
mechanical considerations being paid attention to.
I just want to stand up and just pick this thing up, because that's just brute strong, and that's what I'm going for. And but it's always even with the baseball scandal, and obviously all the guys were hitting home runs and everything the pitching was better, everything about whatever you want to say. But even today, the strength coaches dismiss weightlifting. It's like, didn't you just notice what happened when the guys got strong? They got better. It's like, well, like there was a different amount of, a different kind of strength that they had from the steroids that you can't get from lifting weights.
Force production is force production. Can you mash on something really, really hard? If you can, when you mash on it really hard and fast, you understand. So we just came from the gym, right? We've got a kid starting off with us this morning, just starting off with us. Kid is an extremely talented junior level judo player. He's 12 years old. He's 6'1".
Yes.
I'm scared of this potential this boy's got. He's never strength trained. His judo coach, Roy Hash, is a great judo coach. Has taken a lot of people to the national level, and he sent the kid over to us. This is what we're going to do. We're going to show the kid, and Roy had some interesting ideas about what he thought we ought to do for explosive strength. And what I told Roy is that's exactly what we'll do later.
Yes.
But right now...
Well, in order to have explosive strength, you have to be explosive and have to have...
You got to have strength. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to show him how to squat, how to press, how to deadlift, and how to bench press. And we're going to work on those things. Here in about 3 weeks, we'll probably teach him how to power clean. Once he's got a real good idea of how to keep his back just exactly like that during the power clean. And he'll learn that from the deadlift. Then we'll teach him how to power clean. Here in a couple of months, we'll have him snatching. But the basis of his training right now, and the reason that everybody ought to be even more scared of this kid, is because we're going to get him real strong, and we're not going to worry about anything fancy, because strong is the basis of everything else that derives from strength.
The interesting thing is when we do seminars, and you probably don't get it as much as we used to, is they'll say, well, you and Dave squat 900 or 1,000 pounds. You're not as fast as the dudes in the NFL or something. Now we take this kid, I just may have pulled on my mic, so I apologize. Now you take this kid, the judo kid, it's not about getting him to squat 400 pounds or 500 pounds or 600 pounds. It's getting him to squat 50 more pounds than he did before.
Right. It's getting him to squat at all because he's not squatting right now.
And so, when we talk about strength and getting stronger, it's not about becoming an elite lifter. It's about taking a kid who squats 155 for 4 and getting him to squat 225 for 5, which is going to do nothing but great things. Now, of course, there is a point of diminishing returns. I understand that. But for most people, that's never going to be a factor. It's like the hyper flexible people. I don't want to stretch too much because I want to become hyper flexible.
Oh, yeah.
How many people do you know who are too fast or too flexible or too strong?
Who have too much money.
Yeah, that's right.
Too much money.
You know, it's like
Interesting concept.
My penis is just too massive.
I'm too. Right.
You know, and it's very interesting that you take this kid and people say, well, he doesn't have to be strong, blah, blah. It's like, no, but he has to get stronger. No. That's all we're looking for.
We want him to be. We don't want him to be a power lifter.
No.
We want him to be the strongest judo player that he can be, because when he is the strongest good judo player that he can be, he's already good. He's been doing this since he was 6. He's the national champion in his age group right now. We take a kid like that's got this incredible talent and who has completely undeveloped his strength base with barbells, and we get his squat in about a year up over 300 pounds at the age of 13.
Yep.
This is the type of kid that you see in the Olympics. He's got that much raw talent, that deep a base of experience on the mat, and then you combine that with this brutal strength that we can produce under the bar.
And the confidence he's going to have.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be.
Absolutely.
He's going to look like a motherfucker too. Excuse my language.
He's going to be. That figures into this.
Yeah.
That absolutely figures into this.
Yep.
Alexander Carlin.
Oh God.
People drew him for their for their match.
Yeah.
And they would withdraw from the meet.
Yep.
Because they were literally afraid of this man's strength and ability.
So everyone
his
knows
strength
that's
and
the
ability.
wrestler, the
Russian Greco-Roman wrestler that may be, in fact, the greatest athlete of the 20th century.
When you have
could
people
very well be
lay on the ground during the match to
avoid getting killed by the guy. Right.
I mean, absolutely. And he was physically.
Look him up.
Yeah.
Look him up. Amazing man.
K-A-R-E-L-I-N. Yep. Carolyn. So.
And he's a candidate for that, but his training off the mat was strength training.
Nope.
Pure and simple strength training. Load up a barrel full of rocks, pick it up, carry it around, squat, Olympic lifts, deadlift. This sort of thing's what he did.
And it's this kid is 12. If you give him a good base now and just progress him slowly, make sure he's got great technique, it's going to be, the world's going to be
his apple or whatever, tomato or whatever.
Whatever produce is awesome.
Right.
Whatever produce doesn't give you diabetes or AIDS these days or cancer.
Something like that. So everybody's talked to you about Arizona and football and all this other stuff. Let's talk about your association with Westside Barbell and Louis Simmons for a little while.
Okay.
When did that start, and what happened, and what's the situation?
When I was at the University of Arizona, I'd always been interested in lifting my whole life. Like that's always been probably just like you. You start early, and again, there was just kind of before the internet, so you kind of have to, you're weeding through shit and stuff, and you're kind of you're looking for something new, something different. And I had read an interview with Louis on the internet, ironically enough, and I was like, this guy's a little crazy because he's talking about all these different things I had never heard about, and I was at the point where I wanted to try something different. So I started screwing around with a little bit with some of the ideas he was talking about, and just kind of implementing them in my own training. And I was lucky enough to have a strength coach at Arizona that was like.
And who was that?
Who was willing enough to like, dude, you go do your own thing. Like you can't do that with most kids.
Who's your strength coach at Arizona?
It was Dan Worth. He's no longer there. He's in the private sector right now. But he was cool enough where he's like, it's not like some kids where maybe they'll come in, maybe they're not. It's like stay out of the damn weight room. And I had done enough research my whole life, and I was always questioning stuff and trying to ask him questions. So he's probably happy to get me out of his hair. So after I had started doing some research, I'd stopped. Obviously, football was over with. I graduated, and then I started training more seriously. And to make a long story short, I had met Dave when he came up to the University of Kentucky where I was working, and we had developed a friendship and stuff like that. And he ended up hiring me. And because I had moved out to to Ohio to be with Elite Fitness Systems. That's when I started training at Westside Barbell. I had already known Louis.
So your association with Dave predates Lou?
Yes. I've known Dave since 2001 or so, and I moved up there in 2003. So I had met Dave before. We were friends before. I had moved to Westside Barbell. So I at that point in my life, I didn't want to just move just to lift weights. I had stuff I have to do in my life. It's just not going to do it just to lift.
Right.
While it was still important, I still feel
adulthood being what it is.
Yeah. Responsible.
The inevitability.
Yes. But it started off there, and then I spent, I want to say, 2.5 years there, about 2.5 years, and I had some great success. And I ended up, my all-time goal was squatting 1,000 pounds. That's all I've ever wanted to do. When I was young, I had, one of my first books I ever got was a book from Fred Hatfield, and the mythical 1,000-pound squat. Now, you guys have to understand, this is before the internet, so there was no videos. There's just like, it was kind of like if, I would assume when you were a kid and you heard about Kiss, and all you had was like an album cover and their stories.
Right.
It wasn't like
extremely superficial perception of what is going on here.
Yeah, and you're like, holy shit, these dudes get up there and they're in this crazy makeup and they're blowing fire, and it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. So, that's kind of what Fred Hatfield was, and all these great lifters and stuff was, you just saw pictures. I remember seeing a picture of Terry Long, who was out at he's a football player for the Steelers. He was, at East Carolina, he was pulling 865 pounds. And, I have all these different pictures and stuff. So, when I saw the 1,000-pound squat, that's what I really, and I ended up having a great meet that I did squat 1,000, but, after I did that, I knew I was done. The great thing and the good and the bad thing with powerlifting is it's an infinite sport. So you never really have anyone tell you it's over.
No, you have to come to that conclusion yourself.
And there's, it's like in football or baseball or basketball, it's like, well, we're just not going to renew your contract.
Right. Somebody does it for you. Yeah.
And Dave and I had talked about that, and that's the good thing and the bad thing about powerlifting is, competitively speaking, you can always find an organization or...
Well, you can always lift masters, and you can always go total, whatever it is. If you want to just go to the meet and have fun at the meet, powerlifting is an extremely useful sport in that way.